Good morning, everyone. And today, our topic of discussion in diagnostic is bone profile. And we are going to discuss different tests or different, you can say, different lab investigations which we can do to check for the bone health. And again, I always say this thing that, the basic sciences are very important in understanding all the next subjects. So, a little introduction or little things we must know now before um, talking about the bone profile that in healthy persons, what's going on is the bone, it undergoes a continuous process of remodeling, and this remodeling is done by osteoclast and osteoblast cells, right? Like this is um, you can see the normal physiology, okay, of the remodeling, and this remodeling is basically a continuous process. And how to remember this thing that C is for cut and B is for build. So remember, osteoclast are the bone cutting cells and osteoblast are the bone building cells. So uh, now whenever of course we do a bone profile, so they give us the results. Okay, and yes, of sorry, like before going on that, osteoblast or osteoclast, whatever they are functioning, what is important to understand over here is simply to know that this remodeling of the bone, which is done by osteoclast and osteoblast, they need the calcium, and there is like phosphate, and there is something which is called as alkaline phosphatase, or which is written as ALP. Alkaline phosphatase, uh, like it can be raised in multiple conditions. Okay, and uh, what like one of the thing in which like alkaline phosphatase can be raised is the bone conditions. Um, Simply, like alkaline phosphatase can be raised in hepatitis, for example. That's why I'm saying that this one can be raised in multiple conditions. Uh, so um, simply, so all the hepatitis conditions, like or biliary conditions, we will found that alkaline phosphatase is raised, as well as in bone conditions. Of course, like maybe you're not familiar right now. What are the bone conditions? Like the bone conditions can be osteoporosis or osteomalacia, or there is something called as Paget's disease, or there could be like bone tumors and things like this. Um, so whenever we order a bone profile, what they give us is they give us uh, bone profile gives us the levels of following, you can say. So what are these following things is simply they give us calcium, they give us phosphate, uh, they give us alkaline phosphatase, and they also give us albumin levels. Now, the important thing to understand over here is everything is interconnected. That the bones are are mineralized by calcium, and the calcium levels in the blood is controlled by PTH, parathyroid hormone. So parathyroid hormone, it plays an important role in controlling calcium and phosphate. Okay, so of course, like they are also connected somehow with this thing. So Why albumin is included, like you will came to know in a while. So ALP, right? It is mentioned as ALP. They write it as ALP. Okay, alkaline phosphatase. So alkaline phosphatase have basically different isozymes. Okay, but we are not going in that detail because our discussion right now is bone profile. But the important thing to tell you is like alkaline phosphatase can be raised in multiple conditions: liver, biliary, as well as bone. And alkaline phosphatase can also be raised in heart conditions like after myocardial infarction. Alkaline phosphatase can be raised. So different things can lead to increased level of alkaline phosphatase. Now, the important thing to mention over here is we say metabolic bone conditions, okay, or bone diseases, you can say. There are metabolic bone diseases. Now, what are metabolic bone diseases? As I told you, there are multiple metabolic bone diseases which can be caused like secondary to many other conditions. So, like, what are the metabolic bone conditions? There are many, but I will just name like few important one. Osteoporosis, like which is you can say it is simply defined as when the bone uh, mass is reduced, right? So it could be primary, it could be secondary, and it is very common in post-menopausal women. So osteoporosis is simply like this is the simplest definition you can say. Osteoporosis can be defined as reduced bone mass. Okay, and there are of course other conditions like osteomalacia. Okay, so what is osteomalacia now? Um, this is that when the bone amount is normal, but basically the mineral content of the bone is decreased. So you can simply define as osteoporosis as reduced bone mass, but osteomalacia is like reduced bone mineralization. Okay, so uh, this is like this is opposite to, you can say, osteoporosis. So remember, like in osteoporosis, the mineralization, the minerals or the bone minerals are normal, but in osteomalacia the bone minerals are reduced. Okay, so this thing is an important thing. So in osteoporosis the bone mass is reduced. Remember, like this is the differences, right? uh, and for example, there is one more condition called as Paget's disease of the bone. Okay, so Paget's disease of the bone. Uh, okay, so Paget's disease of the bone, it is also called as osteitis deformans. Now, what is this one? What is this disease? Is basically there is increased bone turnover, which means what? Like both the osteoclast and osteoblast is working more than normal. You can say a very easy way to like, or you can say the bone remodeling, which is like this is the normal process, right? Bone remodeling is the normal process right now going on in you as well, but in this one the bone remodeling is happening at more speed, which will result into some deformities or enlargement or weakness of the bone. So we call it as Paget's disease of the bone, right? So there are many others, guys, but like I'm just talking about the easy ones because like for you guys to understand the thing in a better way, right? Now, the important thing over here is like these are the metabolic bone diseases, right? So uh, now like they give us this one. Okay, so it's normal, like some of the labs they can give you the level of parathyroid hormone, for example, or parathyroid hormone, calcium, phosphate, and one more thing, which is what? Vitamin D, right? So vitamin D, like I don't know you have done this thing, but in first year, second year in our medical school, of course, in physiology we study the function of parathyroid hormone and all they control. So if you don't have any idea what is the function of PTH or parathyroid hormone, you can open Guyton and you can just go through it. It will be very helpful for you. So like these findings they all give, but sometimes of course they give us this thing as well, because all these things are interconnected, right? So now, um, this calcium hemostasis is under control of PTH. That's why they give. And when calcium is low, what will happen? Parathyroid hormone is increased. It's released, okay? And what the parathyroid hormone do, by the way, like whenever the calcium is low, in response to that, uh, parathyroid hormone, which is released from the parathyroid glands, which are located behind thyroid gland, it increases the level of parathyroid hormone. And simply parathyroid hormone, what is the function of that is like it is going to uh, like simply maintain the levels of calcium in the blood. And if the majority of the body calcium is bounded form, but very less is in the free form. And like there are signs and symptoms of hypercalcemia, and there are sign and symptoms due to hypocalcemia, for example tetany. So you can say, okay, by the way, it will take some time, but it's okay, because I think so like many of you will be having trouble in understanding this thing. So I can talk a little about this one as well. For example, parathyroid hormone. Okay, so like guys, I will go like in a very simple way, because we are studying diagnostics. So of course this is the, you can say, the background knowledge which you guys are needed while studying this thing. So parathyroid hormone is the key regulator of calcium hemostasis. Calcium level is low, it will lead to what? um, uh, PTH or parathyroid hormone will be released, right? So this is the first thing to understand. Now, what is the function of parathyroid hormone? Parathyroid hormone raise the serum calcium levels. Okay. So now how it raises the serum calcium levels? Of course, it have to do something to increase the serum calcium level. So number one, see, it increase the reabsorption of calcium from the bone. So what parathyroid hormone do? Simply it needs, it have to bring the calcium in the blood. So what it do? It started absorbing from the bone. Now it will also increase the calcium absorption, or reabsorption, you can say, from the kidney. Okay, so that more and more will be available in the blood. Now, whenever it reabsorbs calcium, what it do? It throw out phosphate. So simply, it increase phosphate excretion. Okay, so this is the point here. And one of the thing is uh, not directly, but you can say indirectly. Indirectly, it increases the absorption of calcium. Why indirectly? I will tell you now. From the gut or the GIT, simply uh, via, um, you can say, affecting or effects of vitamin D. Okay, so I think now you understand. See, why I say indirectly, because it is not the PTH which directly increased, rather it increased absorption via affecting vitamin D. So this is the function of parathyroid hormone now, guys. Now, if you understand this thing, and as I told you, different metabolic bone diseases, and not these are the not the only bone diseases I'm saying again and again. There are many, like you, because some of the students, they just say that there is this one, there is this one. So why you did not tell us? Like, no, you said you did not talk about that. So of course, like there are many. For example, tumors. I said in the start. So bony metastasis. Okay, metastasis is when sorry, the spelling is not correct. It is metastasis. Okay, so like when the tumor cells or the cancers, they spread to the bones, or for example in hyperparathyroidism. So hyperparathyroidism, of course, when the parathyroid hormones will be increased. So what will happen? It is going to reabsorb more and more and more calcium from the bones. So these are, you can say, the bone disease or metabolic bone disease or important metabolic bone diseases. Okay. And of course, like in whenever we are in our differentials, or when we are suspecting these conditions exist, we are going to order a bone profile, and they will give us the values of this thing. Now, very important thing, guys, I would like to put a chart over here, include a chart just to make you understand. So these are okay. Now, what is primary parathyroidism, what is secondary parathyroidism, and what is tertiary parathyroidism? Of course, uh, that is a different topic, because to be very, very, very simple way to tell you is, primary is of course when the condition is in the primary, and secondary is simply when it is secondary to something, and there is tertiary as well. So of course, like if we had time, we can discuss this thing as well. Now, guys, I will tell you how the things behave. As I told you, osteoporosis, it is very common in females after menopause, and what happens is, like, they have reduced bone mass. It could be primary, it could be secondary as well, secondary to some drugs or things like this. Okay. See, uh, what is osteomalacia? I've told you, like, this one is when there is decreased bone mineralization, right? So the minerals are reduced or the calcium is reduced. And osteoporosis, the mass is reduced, but the mineralization is normal, or you can say the calcium will be normal. Of course, it is not just calcium, by the way, there are many other things which are also there. Now, when we order a bone profile, these are the things which we will get. Okay. And of course, like before going to, I think you understand the calcium and phosphate, as I told you, when I told you what you can say, the things related to PTH, but about ALP, alkaline phosphatase. Now, this one, alkaline phosphatase, simply, as I told you, like it is present in almost, you can say, all the tissues of the body. Okay. But it is more present in liver, bile ducts, bones, uh, and intestines. Okay. So the important thing is that whenever this ALP is increased, so it point towards, you can say, that there is some bone problem is going on. Okay. So of course, like if the liver tests are normal, in that case, of course, we will it will point towards the bone condition. Now you will see in osteoporosis, all the things are normal. Okay. uh, like the calcium is normal, the phosphate is normal, the ALP will be normal as well. So why these three things are normal? Because osteoporosis is reduced bone mass. Okay. So basically there is no reduced bone, you can say, uh, mineralization, so like these things will be normal. But when we do, so that's why we do something called as DEXA scan, DEXA. Okay. So DEXA scan is done in most of the females, after menopause, and the DEXA scan is the one which basically measure, you can say, bone. It is called as DEXA, so bone density, simply. Okay. So uh, DEXA scan simply measures bone density. So we do DEXA scan to diagnose osteoporosis, right? Okay. On the other hand, if you will see over here in osteomalacia, which is the decreased bone mineralization. So what is happening? See, the calcium can be normal or can be low. See, the calcium are low, but see, when the calcium will go low in the serum, what will happen? The PTH will be released, and when the PTH will be released, of course, it is going to raise the, or bring back the level of the calcium in the serum to the towards normal, right? So that's why it is written normal or decreased. uh, and see, and when the PTH will be there, so of course it is going to reabsorb more and more of calcium from the bone, and it is going to reabsorb more and more calcium from the kidney, and when it is going to do that, it is going to throw out more and more phosphate. Okay, and of course ALP will be raised in this one as well. Okay, so this is called as osteomalacia. If you know about a condition called as rickets, which is in the kids, of course that is one of the cause of this thing, or that is one of the type of osteomalacia, right? So in this one, of course, calcium can be reduced, phosphate will be reduced, and ALP will be high. Okay. Of course, there is other tests which we can do in this one as well. Like these tests will guide us towards different tests. So, like in this one, we can go for biopsy, we can go for X-ray, we can go for vitamin D measurements and things like this. Okay, Paget's disease of bone, which is also called as osteitis deformans. In this one, what is going on? There is increased bone turnover. Now, remember, guys, whenever the bone turnover is increased, so of course, in this one, the calcium and the phosphate will be normal. But see, because of the remodeling of the bone, the alkaline phosphatase will be high. Okay, so this is the point. Basically, this one is basically the disease of old age. Okay, Paget's disease of uh, bone, and the patients, they present with some bony deformities. Okay, so whenever someone have bony deformity and we are suspecting that, we check the bone profile and we found that calcium and phosphate, they are normal, but alkaline phosphatase is quite raised. What we go for, we do x-rays. Okay, in these patients to make the diagnosis, and they have like some typical look on the x-ray of these patients. Okay, so now never forget this thing, that bone profile always come back as normal in osteoporosis, right? You can see like in bony metastasis, in which like it is cancer conditions, and most of the cancer conditions, they are associated with hypercalcemia. So uh, of course, like when there is hypercalcemia, the PTH will be reduced, and when PTH will be reduced, like the kidneys will throw out more and more calcium and are going to retain more and more phosphate, and there is bone is disturbed or the bone is broken down, so ALP will be raised as well. Primary hyperthyroidism, see guys, the condition is very, very, very clear. In primary hyperthyroidism, what is going on? The uh, body is producing more and more, the parathyroid glands are producing more and more parathyroid hormone, which will increase the calcium levels in the blood, throw out the phosphate, and ALP will be raised as well. Secondary hyperparathyroidism, which is secondary to some condition, calcium will be normal, phosphate will be higher. Okay, as well as the ALP will be higher. And the tertiary one, uh, like this one, is like calcium will be higher, alkaline phosphatase will be higher, but phosphate will be lower. So this is how we go for what you can say, uh, the bone profile, and this is how we check for these things. Now, the important thing to talk about here is the calcium, okay, which one thing I want to address over here, that is called as corrected calcium. Okay, now what is that? What is this basically? As I told you in the start, that in the body, most of the calcium is in bounded form. Okay, just a little amount of calcium is basically in the body in the free form. And I told you, like most of the cancers, they are associated with hyper calcemia, right? Now the important thing over here to understand is calcium is very, 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 uh, you can say, important ion, okay, in the body, of course, and um, like the amount of calcium which is in the blood, okay, uh, can be measured, you can say, as total calcium. So total calcium includes both free calcium as well as protein bound, right? So as I told you, that most of the calcium, okay, uh, or you can remember it by this way, like most of the calcium uh, in the body sorry, most of the calcium in the blood, or in the plasma, they are the same thing anyways, um, is bound to protein, right? So uh, which protein? It is basically albumin, okay? And uh, a very little one is unbound, okay? Little portion is unbound, okay? So the important thing to understand over here is what, it is this portion, or you can say the unbound portion, or the free calcium, which is in the plasma. This is basically the important one, or this is basically the physiologically important one, okay? So see, now very easy concept. See, when the alb like, and this will answer you, like I'm going to answer in this one, this thing as well, why we measure albumin, right? So most of the calcium in the blood is bound to the protein. Which protein now? Now the things will disclose. Albumin. Okay. So little portion is unbound. So which, and this one is the important one. So what will happen when someone have hypoalbuminemia, which means like their albumin level in the blood is less. Okay. So calcium is bound to albumin, but when there is less albumin in the blood, what is going to happen? That simply uh, you can say uh, there will be less albumin which will be available for the calcium to bound with, right? So see, what we measure total calcium, okay? So total calcium is made up of what? It is bounded plus unbounded, right? So you can say that in a hypoalbuminemia, okay, uh, the total calcium levels, these levels will be misleading, okay? And why misleading? Because the albumin is low, so there is less calcium which is bounded with albumin, so we are going to get higher values of unbounded one, right? So that's why we use uh, what you can say, this calculation which is called as corrected calcium, okay? That's why they correct the calcium levels um, according to the albumin, what is the level of albumin, and then they correct the calcium, okay? So you can say like the definition of corrected calcium is what, like this one refers to the calcium level corrected for the fact that albumin is abnormal. So simply this is the corrected calcium, keeping in view what is the level of albumin, right? Okay. Wait, I will show you now again by the help of Bing if we can found, you can say, corrected calcium. Okay, corrected calcium calculators are also there, but of course, like just wanted to show you a very, very, very simple type of calculation. Uh, this one. Corrected calcium is equal to, you can say 4.0 minus albumin, okay, um, plus calcium in milligram per deciliter. This one you can use, or you can say, wait, if I can found a better one. Uh, okay, yes, you can found, you can see this one. I don't know how to fix this one here. Basically, this one is like, sorry, this one is like this, like the calcium corrected is equal to calcium plus 0.02 multiplied by 40 minus albumin, right? So this is how we correct the, see the albumin levels, okay? So they, like, it depends, like this calculation depends on the albumin level. So when the albumin level is low, so we can get a different result in these things, right? So that's why it is called as corrected calcium, okay? And simply, for example, someone have calcium of 1.92 millimole per liter and albumin of 20 gram per liter. So when we calculate it by using this formula, simply what will happen that we will get the corrected calcium levels that will come back as 2.42 millimole per liter, right? So uh, actually I'm bad in this how to write equations, but you can say plasma calcium levels, okay, plasma calcium levels, or you can say plasma calcium levels which are the corrected one, okay, is equal to, sorry, is equal to, you can say, um, the plasma calcium levels in millimole per liter, plus, um, you can say, 0.1, um, 40 minus albumin level, whatever is measured, and divided by, all this thing is divided by 4, okay. So this one is divided by 4. So of course, like, this one and that one is the same one. So this is like the way of, so for example, if someone have calcium levels of this one, this value as, uh, what you can say, calcium level corrected one, okay. So for example, if you want to calculate for someone whose value come back as this value, this value, plasma calcium levels come back as 1.92 millimole per liter. So we will add, and his albumin level come back as 40 minus albumin level come back as 20 gram per liter. So when you are going to solve this equation, what will be the final answer? So the final answer will be 2.42 millimole per liter of calcium. So this is the corrected calcium level. So this is simply we use when there is hypoalbuminemia, right? Because hypoalbuminemia, or simply we use corrected calcium always in like according to our albumin levels to get the exact level of calcium in the blood. Hypercalcemia is a very common condition. It can occur in many conditions like cancers, when there is bony metastasis, hyperparathyroidism, someone who is taking too much vitamin D, and multiple, what you can say, hematological cancers like multiple myeloma. So that's all for bone profile, guys. I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you so much.